The police detective sat across from me at my kitchen table, turning my birthday present over in his hands. "Ms. Bennett," he said, "do you have any idea where your sister obtained this tablet?" I stared at him, confused, still in my pajamas because it was barely 6 a.m. "She gave it to me for my birthday," I said. "She bought it." He exchanged a look with his partner. "Ma'am, this tablet was reported stolen 11 days ago from a Best Buy in Phoenix. It's one of 17 items your sister is suspected of stealing over the past 6 months. We need to take it as evidence." That's how my 39th birthday gift became Exhibit C in my sister's criminal case. To understand how I ended up sitting at my kitchen table at dawn, watching police bag up my birthday present as evidence, I need to tell you about my sister Jennifer and the complicated relationship we've always had. Jennifer is 3 years younger than me. She's 37 now. And we grew up in Mesa, Arizona, in a middle-class family that looked stable from the outside, but was held together with duct tape and denial on the inside. Our father was a high school teacher who drank too much on weekends. Our mother was a bank teller who worked overtime to make up for the money Dad spent on things we didn't talk about. We had a roof over our heads, food on the table, and a simmering tension that neither of us fully understood as children, but felt in every interaction. From early on, Jennifer and I took different approaches to dealing with our family dysfunction. I became the responsible one, the good girl who got straight A's and never caused problems. I figured if I could just be perfect enough, maybe the tension would ease, maybe Dad would drink less, maybe Mom would smile more. Jennifer went the opposite direction. She was the wild child, the one who pushed every boundary, who got caught sneaking out at 15, who brought home boys Mom hated, who seemed determined to prove she didn't care what anyone thought. But here's what I understood even then, even when I was frustrated with her. Jennifer's rebellion was just another way of trying to get our parents' attention. We were both performing, just in different ways. I was performing perfection, she was performing defiance. Neither of us was really being seen. We were close despite our differences, or maybe because of them. Jennifer would sneak into my room late at night after fights with our parents, and we'd lie on my bed in the dark, talking about everything and nothing. She'd tell me about the boy she liked or the teacher who'd been unfair, and I'd listen and give advice she rarely took. I'd tell her about my anxieties and ambitions, and she'd tell me I worried too much, that life wasn't meant to be planned down to the minute. "Sophia, you're going to give yourself an ulcer before you're 30, she'd say, laughing. "Just breathe, just live." When I left for college at 18, Arizona State, close enough to visit but far enough to feel like freedom, Jennifer was 15 and already struggling. She'd started hanging out with a crowd our parents disapproved of, kids who cut class and smoked behind the school. I worried about her constantly, calling home every few days to check in. "How's Jennifer?" I'd ask Mom. "She's Jennifer," Mom would say tiredly. "You know how she is." By the time I graduated college and started my career in marketing, Jennifer had dropped out of community college after one semester. She was 21, working at a coffee shop, dating a guy named Marcus who I instantly disliked. Marcus was charming in that dangerous way, too smooth, too quick with compliments, always had an angle. "I don't trust him," I told Jennifer over lunch one day. "You don't trust anyone," she shot back. "You think everyone has ulterior motives." "Everyone. Just people who act like they're doing you favors when they're really doing themselves favors." She rolled her eyes. "You don't even know him." But I knew enough, and I was right to be worried. Jennifer got pregnant when she was 23. Marcus left 2 months later, deciding fatherhood wasn't for him after all. Jennifer had the baby, my nephew Dylan, who became the center of her world and mine, and suddenly my wild child sister was a single mother working 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads. I helped as much as I could. I sent money when she needed it, babysat Dylan whenever I could, listened when she called crying about how hard it all was. But there was always a distance between us, a fundamental difference in how we approached life that neither of us could quite bridge. I was climbing the corporate ladder, renting a nice apartment, saving for a house, planning my future in careful detail. Jennifer was living paycheck to paycheck, in a small apartment in a rough neighborhood, making decisions on impulse and dealing with consequences later. When I turned 35, I'd been promoted to senior marketing manager. I bought my first house, a small but lovely place in a safe Phoenix suburb. Jennifer came to my housewarming party with Dylan, who was 12 by then, and I could see her looking around with something I couldn't quite read in her eyes. Pride, envy, sadness, You did good, sis, she said, hugging me. You really made it. You're doing good too, I said, meaning it. Dylan's amazing. You raised an incredible kid. Yeah, but look at this place. Look at your life. You have it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out, I protested. I'm single. I work too much. But you're stable, she interrupted. You're secure. That's something. Looking back now, I wish I'd heard what she wasn't saying. I wish I'd understood that Jennifer wasn't just complimenting me. She was comparing herself to me and finding herself wanting. But I was too wrapped up in my own life to fully see hers. The next few years continued in much the same pattern. I advanced in my career, dated occasionally without anything serious developing, maintained my neat, controlled life. Jennifer worked her 2 jobs, one at a grocery store, one at a call center, raised Dylan, and struggled financially despite working herself to exhaustion. We saw each other regularly. Family dinners at our parents' house, Dylan's school events, occasional sisters' lunches where we'd catch up on life. But there was always something Jennifer wasn't telling me. I could sense it, conversations that stopped when I entered rooms, phone calls she'd taken another room, a certain guardedness that hadn't been there when we were younger. Is everything okay? I'd ask. Everything's fine, she'd say. Just stressed about money, you know how it is. But I didn't know how it was, not really. My money stress was whether I could afford to renovate my bathroom this year or wait until next year. Her money stress was whether she could keep the electricity on and still buy Dylan new shoes. I offered to help more. I offered to pay for Dylan's school supplies, to cover their rent for a month, to loan her money. She accepted sometimes, refused others, and I never quite knew which response I'd get. I don't want to be a charity case, she said once, her voice sharp. I'm doing fine. I'm not offering charity, I said. I'm offering help. There's a difference. To me, there isn't. And so we maintained our delicate balance, sisters who loved each other but lived in fundamentally different worlds, connected by blood and history, but separated by circumstances neither of us knew how to bridge. Then came my 39th birthday, this past March. I'd had a rough year. The company I worked for had been acquired, and my position was being restructured in ways that felt more like a demotion than a lateral move. I'd been dating someone for 6 months who'd ended things abruptly, saying he wasn't ready for serious commitment, which was code for I met someone else. I was feeling old and stuck and tired in a way I'd never felt before. Jennifer knew I was struggling. We talked about it during our last lunch together, and she'd been surprisingly empathetic and supportive. In a tough spot, she'd said. But you're strong, you'll figure it out. I don't feel strong, I'd admitted. I feel like I'm 39 and starting over in ways I shouldn't have to start over. Then start over in ways that matter, she'd said. Screw the job if it's making you miserable. Screw the guy who couldn't see how amazing you are. Just be you. It was good advice, the kind of thing the old Jennifer used to say when we were lying in the dark in my childhood bedroom, and it made me feel closer to her than I had in years. So when she showed up at my small birthday dinner, just her, Dylan, our parents, and my best friend Rachel, carrying a wrapped box with a big bow on top, I was touched that she'd brought a gift at all. Happy birthday, sis, she said, hugging me tight. You deserve something special. I opened the box and found a brand new tablet, a nice one, not top of the line, but definitely not cheap. I knew for a fact these retailed for around $500. Jennifer, this is too much, I said immediately. You can't afford this. Don't worry about it, she said, waving away my concern. I've been saving, and you need it for work, right? You're always on your laptop. Now you can work from anywhere. It was thoughtful. It was practical. It was exactly the kind of thing I'd use but would never buy for myself because I already had a perfectly functional laptop. Are you sure? I asked. I'm sure, she said. Just accept it, okay? Let someone do something nice for you for once. So I did. I hugged her and thanked her and set up the tablet that evening, downloading apps and logging into my accounts. It worked beautifully. I used it for everything over the next week and a half, reading in bed, checking emails during my morning coffee, video calls with clients, streaming shows while cooking dinner. It never occurred to me to question where it came from. Why would it? My sister gave me a birthday present. That's what people do. That's what families do. Until the morning of March 23rd, when everything I thought I knew about my sister came crashing down. I'm not a morning person. I never have been. My alarm goes off at 6:30 a.m. on workdays, and I hit snooze at least twice before dragging myself out of bed. So when someone started pounding on my door at 5:53 a.m. on that Tuesday morning, my first thought was that there must be an emergency. I stumbled out of bed, threw on a robe over my pajamas, and checked the peephole. 2 people in professional clothes stood on my doorstep. The man held up a badge to the peephole. "Phoenix Police, we need to speak with Sophia Bennett." My heart started racing. Police at my door before 6 a.m. meant something terrible had happened. My first thought was our parents. Had there been an accident? Then Dylan. Had something happened to my nephew? I opened the door, my hands shaking. "What's wrong? Is everyone okay?" The female detective, I'd learn later her name was Detective Sarah Morrison, gave me a reassuring but serious look. "As far as we know, your family is fine. But we need to ask you some questions about your sister, Jennifer Walsh, and about some property that may be in your possession." Relief that there hadn't been an accident immediately gave way to confusion. What property? What's this about?" "May we come in?" the male detective asked. His badge said Detective James Rodriguez. I let them in because what else could I do? They sat at my kitchen table, and I made coffee with shaking hands, trying to wake up and make sense of what was happening. "MS. Bennett," Detective Morrison began, pulling out a notebook. "When was the last time you saw your sister?" "At my birthday dinner," I said. 11 days ago, March 12th. Why, what's going on? Is Jennifer in trouble?" "We're investigating a series of thefts from retail stores across the Phoenix metro area," Detective Rodriguez said. "Your sister is a person of interest in this investigation." The words didn't make sense at first. Thefts, Jennifer. I don't understand. "What kind of thefts?" "Organized retail theft," Morrison explained. "Someone has been stealing high-value electronics from various stores over the past 6 months. We believe your sister may be involved." I shook my head. "Number Jennifer wouldn't. She's struggling financially, yes, but she wouldn't steal. You have the wrong person." They exchanged a look that I would come to recognize as the "this person has no idea what their family member has been doing" look. "MS. Bennett," Rodriguez said gently, "we have surveillance footage from multiple stores showing a woman matching your sister's description leaving without paying for merchandise. We have witness statements from store employees. And we have evidence that some of the stolen merchandise may have been given as gifts to family members." That's when he asked about the tablet. "Your sister gave you a gift recently, correct? For your birthday?" "Yes, but she bought that. She said she'd been saving. Can you show us the gift?" I got the tablet from my bedroom, my mind spinning. This had to be a mistake. Jennifer wouldn't steal. She wouldn't involve me in something illegal. She wouldn't. Rodriguez examined the tablet, checking the serial number against something on his phone. His expression confirmed what I was starting to fear. "This device was reported stolen from a Best Buy in Tempe on March 10th, he said. 2 days before your birthday." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. No, that can't be right. Jennifer gave me this. She said she bought it." "Sorry, Ms. Bennett," Morrison said, and she actually did look sorry. "But this tablet is stolen property. We need to take it as evidence." They bagged it up right there at my kitchen table, and I sat frozen, trying to process what this meant. "Am I in trouble?" I asked. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." "Believe you," Rodriguez said. "You're a victim here, too. Your sister used you to hide stolen property. That's not uncommon in these cases." "What happens now?" I asked. "Executing a search warrant at your sister's residence this morning," Morrison explained. "We expect to find additional stolen merchandise. She'll be arrested and charged with multiple counts of retail theft." Can I call her? Warn her?" Morrison's expression hardened slightly. "I'd advise against that, Ms. Bennett. Interfering with an active investigation is a crime. And honestly, the best thing you can do for your sister right now is let her face the consequences of her actions." They left shortly after, taking my birthday present and my peace of mind with them. I called in sick to work. There was no way I could focus on marketing strategies when my sister was about to be arrested, and sat in my living room in shock. I kept picking up my phone to call Jennifer, then putting it down, remembering the detective's warning. What was I supposed to do? Let my sister get arrested without warning. But if I warned her, would I be breaking the law too? And how could Jennifer have done this? How could she have stolen that tablet and given it to me like it was a thoughtful gift? At 9:47 a.m., my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. "You have a collect call from Jennifer Walsh at the Phoenix Police Department. Will you accept the charges?" My sister had been arrested. I said. "Yes, I accept." There was a click, and then Jennifer's voice, tight and scared in a way I'd rarely heard. "Sophia, the police came. They arrested me. They searched my apartment and They found things. I need help. I need a lawyer. Can you—" "Jennifer, what did you do?" I interrupted. "The police were here this morning. They took the tablet. They said you stole it." Silence on the other end. Then quietly, "I'm sorry." Sorry for what? For stealing, for giving me stolen property. For lying to me. I didn't mean for you to get involved, she said, her voice breaking. I just wanted to give you something nice. You've been having such a hard time, and I wanted to do something for you, but I couldn't afford anything, and so you stole it. I was on my feet now, packing my living room, my voice rising. You stole a tablet and gave it to me and let me use it for 11 days, knowing the police might come for it. Knowing I could get in trouble. I thought I'd gotten away with it, she said miserably. The other times nothing happened. I thought this time would be the same. Other times, this wasn't the first time. Of course it wasn't the first time. Long, I asked. How long have you been doing this? About 6 months, she whispered, 6 months. Half a year of my sister living a double life I knew nothing about. Why? I asked, and it came out as almost a plea. Why would you do this? Because I couldn't keep up, she burst out. I work 2 jobs, Sophia. 2 jobs, and I still can't pay all the bills. Dylan needed a new laptop for school. The car needed repairs. The rent went up. I was drowning, and I saw an opportunity and I took it. And then I did it again and again. And it was so easy. Nobody noticed. The stores have insurance. It didn't feel like I was really hurting anyone. Except me, I said. You hurt me. You made me an accessory. And what about Dylan? What's going to happen to him while you're dealing with this? Another silence. Then, can you take him, just until I figure this out? And there it was. The real reason for the call, not to apologize, not to explain, but to ask me to clean up her mess. Again. I said yes to taking Dylan. Of course I did. He was 14 years old, terrified, and had just watched his mother get arrested. Whatever anger I felt toward Jennifer, her son didn't deserve to be punished for her choices. I picked him up from our parents' house, where the police had dropped him off after the arrest, that same afternoon. He was sitting on the couch in the living room where Jennifer and I had grown up, his face pale and eyes red from crying. Hey, buddy, I said, sitting down next to him. Aunt Sophia, I don't understand what's happening, he said. The police took Mom. They took boxes of stuff from our apartment. They said she stole things, but Mom wouldn't steal. She wouldn't. I put my arm around him, my own anger at Jennifer momentarily overwhelmed by heartbreak for this kid who was learning his mother wasn't who he thought she was. No, this is scary and confusing, I said. Your mom made some mistakes, big mistakes. And now she has to deal with the consequences of those mistakes. But you didn't do anything wrong, and we're going to make sure you're taken care of. Our mother came out of the kitchen, her face drawn and aged by stress. Are you taking him to your place? Yeah, I said. He can stay with me as long as he needs to. Mom nodded. I can't believe this. I raised her better than this. Where did we go wrong? It was such a mom thing to say, making Jennifer's choices about her parenting, and I felt a familiar irritation rise up. You didn't go wrong, I said. Jennifer made her own choices. This isn't your fault. But even as I said it, I wondered, was it true? Or had our childhood dysfunction contributed to Jennifer's pattern of bad decisions? I didn't have answers, and standing in that living room wasn't the time to search for them. I took Dylan home with his backpack of clothes and his schoolwork and his confusion. I set him up in my guest room and ordered pizza for dinner because neither of us had the energy for anything more complicated. What's going to happen to Mom? He asked while we ate. I don't know exactly, I admitted. She'll probably have to go to court. She might have to pay fines or do community service. In serious cases, people go to jail, but I don't know if that will happen. His eyes widened. Jail? Maybe not, I said quickly, though I had no idea whether that was true. Let's just take this one day at a time, okay? Over the next few days, the full scope of Jennifer's crimes became clear. She'd been stealing from retail stores across the Phoenix metro area for 6 months, targeting electronics primarily, tablets, laptops, smartphones, gaming systems. Her method was relatively simple. She'd enter stores during busy times, select high-value items, and walk out without paying. Sometimes she'd use a bag lined with aluminum foil to defeat security sensors. Sometimes she'd just act like she'd already paid and walk confidently past the registers. She'd stolen approximately $35,000 worth of merchandise. Some she'd sold online through various marketplace apps. Some she'd given as gifts to friends and family. Not just the tablet to me, but a laptop to Dylan for his birthday, a gaming system to a neighbor's kid, various smaller items to people she knew. I felt nauseous learning all this. The tablet I'd been using for work wasn't just stolen. It was part of a months-long crime spree, and I'd had no idea. None. Jennifer was released on bond with the condition that she wear an ankle monitor and not leave Maricopa County. She called me the day she got out. I come see Dylan. she asked. Every instinct in me wanted to say no. I was furious with her. I felt betrayed and manipulated and ashamed that I'd been so clueless about what she'd been doing. But she was still my sister, and Dylan needed to see his mother. You can come for dinner tomorrow, I said. But we need to talk, really talk, no more lies. She came to my house the next evening, and it was one of the most uncomfortable meals of my life. Dylan was subdued, asking his mother questions she struggled to answer. Why did you do it, Mom? How could you risk everything? What's going to happen to us? After Dylan went to his room to do homework, Jennifer and I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where the detectives had sat 11 days earlier, and had the conversation we should have had years ago. Need you to help me understand, I said. Because right now I don't understand any of this. You risked everything, your freedom, your relationship with Dylan, your family, for what? Things, money. You don't get it, she said, her voice defensive. You've never struggled the way I have. You've always had enough money. You've always been stable and secure. So this is my fault somehow, because I worked hard and made careful choices. No, that's not what I'm saying. She put her head in her hands. I'm saying you don't know what it's like to work 2 jobs and still not have enough, to watch your kid go without things because you can't afford them, to feel like a failure every single day because you can't provide the way you're supposed to. So you stole, I said flatly. So I made a terrible mistake, she corrected. And then I made it again and again, because once you start, it's hard to stop. It was like, I don't know, like an addiction almost, the rush of getting away with it, the relief of being able to pay bills or give Dylan something nice. And I told myself I wasn't really hurting anyone. The stores have insurance. They factor in theft as part of their business model. It didn't feel like real crime. It was real crime, I said. And you involved me. You gave me stolen property and let me use it, knowing I could face consequences. The detective said you weren't being charged, Jennifer said quietly, because they believe I didn't know. But you knew, Jennifer. You knew exactly what you were doing when you gave me that tablet. She started crying then, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to give you something nice. You'd been so sad about your job and that guy who dumped you, and I wanted to make you smile. I wanted you to be proud of me for once, to see that I could give you something meaningful instead of always being the one who needs help. And there it was, the heart of it. Jennifer didn't just steal because she was struggling financially. She stole because she felt like a failure compared to me. Because our whole lives, I'd been the successful one and she'd been the one who couldn't get it together. And giving me that tablet, even though it was stolen, made her feel for a moment like she was the sister who had something to offer instead of the sister who was always in need. It didn't excuse what she'd done, but it helped me understand it. Never thought less of you because you struggle, I said quietly. I've never needed you to prove your worth by giving me expensive gifts. I just need you to be honest, to be present, to be my sister. I know, she whispered. I know that now. Jennifer's criminal case consumed the next several months of all our lives. She was charged with multiple counts of felony theft, and the prosecutor wasn't interested in a lenient plea deal. They wanted to make an example of her, to send a message that organized retail theft would be prosecuted aggressively. Jennifer hired a public defender because she couldn't afford a private attorney. His name was Mark Chen, and he was overworked and underpaid, but genuinely seemed to care about Jennifer's case. The prosecution is pushing for jail time, he told us during a meeting in his cramped office downtown. Probably 18 months to 3 years, depending on the judge. But I think we can argue for probation instead, given that this is her first offense and she has a dependent minor at home. First offense, technically true, but misleading. This was her first time being caught, but it definitely wasn't her first time stealing. What are the chances of probation? I asked. Mark sighed. Honestly, 50-50, maybe 60-40 if we get the right judge. Retail theft has become a big issue in Arizona. Stores are pushing for harsher penalties. The political climate isn't in her favor. I watched Jennifer's face as Mark laid out the possibilities. She looked terrified, and for the first time since the arrest, I saw real understanding in her eyes. This wasn't going away. This was going to follow her for the rest of her life. What happens if I go to jail? She asked quietly. What happens to Dylan? He stays with me, I said immediately, for as long as necessary. Mark looked between us. The court will need to establish a temporary guardianship if Jennifer is incarcerated. It's a straightforward process, especially since you're family. And after, Jennifer asked, after I serve whatever sentence they give me, will I still have custody? That depends, Mark said carefully. If you successfully complete your sentence and any probation requirements, and if Child Protective Services doesn't intervene, then yes. But you'll need to demonstrate stability, housing, employment, the ability to provide. Employment, with a felony conviction on her record. We all knew how unlikely it was that Jennifer would find decent work after this. The preliminary hearings were brutal. I attended when I could, sitting in the courtroom gallery and watching my sister stand before judges and prosecutors who saw her as just another criminal, another case number. The prosecutors laid out the evidence methodically. Surveillance footage showing Jennifer entering and exiting stores with merchandise she hadn't paid for. Testimony from loss prevention officers who'd reviewed the footage and identified patterns. Serial numbers from recovered stolen property matching items reported stolen. They showed the footage in court. I watched my sister on a screen, walking into a Best Buy with an empty shopping bag, selecting a tablet, my tablet, and walking out without paying. She looked calm, confident, like she'd done this 100 times before. Because she had. During one hearing, Dylan sat next to me. He'd insisted on coming, saying he needed to see what his mother was facing. I'd tried to talk him out of it, but he was 14 and stubborn and determined to understand. He watched his mother on the screen, stealing, and I felt him tense beside me. She lied to me, he whispered. All those gifts she gave me, the laptop, the headphones, everything. She said she'd saved up. She said she'd gotten a bonus at work, but she just stole them. I know, I said quietly. I used stolen stuff, he said, his voice cracking. I took it to school. I showed my friends. I thought Mom was doing better, that we were doing better, but it was all fake. I put my arm around him, and he leaned into me, crying silently while the prosecution continued to build their case against his mother. Jennifer took a plea deal in August, 5 months after her arrest. She pled guilty to 3 counts of felony theft in exchange for the other charges being dropped. The sentencing was scheduled for September. The night before the sentencing hearing, Jennifer came to my house. Dylan was at a friend's house for a sleepover. I'd arranged it deliberately, knowing Jennifer, and I needed to talk without him overhearing. I'm probably going to jail tomorrow, she said, sitting on my couch with a glass of wine I'd poured for her. Mark says the judge is known for harsh sentencing in theft cases. Then we'll deal with it, I said. Dylan will stay with me. You'll serve your time. And when you get out, we'll figure out the next steps. She looked at me with eyes that held a decade's worth of regret. Why are you helping me? After everything I did, I stole from stores and dragged you into it. I put my kid in a position where he has to live with his aunt instead of his mother. I ruined everything. Why are you still here? I'd asked myself that question 1,000 times over the past 5 months. Why was I helping the sister who'd betrayed my trust, who'd involved me in crimes I knew nothing about, who'd made choices that affected my life in ways I never consented to? Because you're my sister, I said simply, and because I remember who you were before all this, the girl who'd sneak into my room late at night and tell me not to worry so much, the woman who raised an incredible kid on her own despite everything working against her. You made terrible choices, Jennifer. Choices that hurt people, including me, but you're not just your worst decisions, and family doesn't abandon family when things get hard. She started crying. I don't deserve you. Probably not, I agreed, but you're stuck with me anyway. The sentencing hearing the next day was surreal. The prosecution recommended 3 years in prison. Mark argued for probation with community service and restitution. Jennifer stood before the judge and read a statement she'd written, apologizing to the stores she'd stolen from, to her family, to her son. I have no excuse for what I did, she said, her voice shaking but clear. I was struggling financially and I made choices that I knew were wrong. I justified those choices by telling myself I wasn't hurting anyone, but I was. I hurt my family. I hurt my son. I hurt the businesses I stole from, and I hurt myself. I'm deeply sorry, and I'm committed to making amends in whatever way the court deems appropriate. The judge, A stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Hawkins listened to everything, reviewed the documents, and then delivered her sentence. Ms. Walsh, you've admitted to committing multiple felonies over an extended period. This wasn't a single lapse in judgment. It was a pattern of criminal behavior. However, I also note that this is your first conviction, that you have a minor child dependent on you, and that you've expressed genuine remorse. Therefore, I'm sentencing you to 18 months in county jail, with the possibility of early release for good behavior. You'll also be required to pay full restitution to the affected businesses and complete 200 hours of community service upon release. 18 months. Jennifer would be in jail for 18 months. They took her into custody immediately. I watched them handcuff her and lead her away, watched her turn back to look at me with fear and regret, and something that might have been gratitude. And then she was gone, and I was left to explain to her son that his mother wouldn't be coming home for at least a year. Becoming a temporary guardian to a 14-year-old boy when you're a single, childless woman with a full-time job and no parenting experience is challenging. That's putting it mildly. Dylan moved into my guest room officially the week after Jennifer was sentenced. We established a routine. I'd wake him up for school, make breakfast, drop him off on my way to work. He'd take the bus home, do his homework, and wait for me to get home around 6 p.m. We'd make dinner together, watch TV, and try to pretend this arrangement was normal. But it wasn't normal. Dylan was grieving the loss of his mother and the life he'd known. He was angry at Jennifer for making choices that led to this. He was scared about what would happen next. And he was dealing with all of this while navigating high school, which is hard enough without your mother being in jail. The first few weeks were the hardest. Dylan was withdrawn and uncommunicative. He'd go to his room right after dinner and stay there all evening. His grades started slipping. His teachers reached out, concerned about his sudden decline in performance. I scheduled a meeting with his school counselor, a compassionate woman named Ms. Rodriguez, and explained the situation. Dylan's dealing with trauma, she said. His whole world has been upended. He needs stability and patience and probably professional counseling. I enrolled him in therapy with a counselor who specialized in teens dealing with parental incarceration. Dr. Michael Torres was patient and skilled, and slowly, Dylan started opening up. He's dealing with a lot of conflicting emotions, Dr. Torres told me during a parent session. He loves his mother, but he's also angry at her. He's grateful to you for taking him in, but he also resents needing to be taken in. He's embarrassed about his situation, but also fiercely protective of his mother's reputation. All of this is normal, but it's a lot for a 14-year-old to process. How do I help him? I asked. Keep doing what you're doing. Provide structure. Be consistent. Listen when he wants to talk and give him space when he doesn't. And don't try to replace his mother. You're his aunt, and that relationship is valuable on its own terms. I tried to follow that advice. I learned to cook meals Dylan actually liked instead of my usual rotation of healthy but boring options. I drove him to his friends' houses and picked him up from school events. I went to his parent-teacher conferences and helped with homework and learned more about freshman algebra than I ever wanted to know. We visited Jennifer every other week at the county jail. The visits were hard, talking through plexiglass phones, seeing her in a jail uniform, watching Dylan try not to cry when the visit ended and he had to leave his mother there. Are you holding up? I'd ask Jennifer during the visits. I'm okay, she'd say, though she clearly wasn't. She looked tired and older, the stress of incarceration showing in every line of her face. How's Dylan? He's doing better, I'd tell her, sometimes exaggerating the truth to ease her guilt. His grades are improving. He joined the chess club. He's making it work. And he was, mostly. But some nights I'd hear him crying in his room, and I'd stand outside his door, unsure whether to go in or give him privacy. Some mornings he'd be angry about nothing and everything, snapping at me over breakfast before storming off to school. Hate this, he shouted one morning after I'd asked him to clean his room. I hate living here. I hate that Mom's in jail. I hate that everything is different. I know, I said, keeping my voice calm even though I wanted to shout back. I hate it too, but this is what we've got right now, so we have to make the best of it. Easy for you to say, he muttered. This isn't your life that got ruined. That stung, but I let it go. Because he was right in a way. My life had been disrupted, my privacy and independence curtailed, but I hadn't lost my mother to jail. I hadn't had to move out of my home and into my aunt's guest room. I hadn't had to deal with classmates whispering about my family's drama. But here's what I learned during those months of raising Dylan. Parenting, even temporary parenting, changes you in ways you can't predict. I became more patient, more flexible, more willing to accept imperfection in myself and others. I also became closer to my nephew. We had family dinners where we actually talked about our days. We watched shows together and developed inside jokes. We went hiking on weekends, and I watched him slowly come out of his shell, laughing and joking and being a kid again instead of a kid dealing with trauma. One evening, about 6 months into Jennifer's sentence, Dylan and I were making tacos together. He was grating cheese while I seasoned the meat, and he said out of nowhere, "Thanks for doing this." "Doing what?" I asked. "Making dinner." "No, all of it, taking me in, going to my school stuff, visiting Mom with me. You didn't have to do any of that." "Of course I did," I said. "Your family." "Still," he said, "I know I haven't been easy, and I know this whole thing messed up your life too, so." "Thanks." I stopped what I was doing and looked at him, this kid who'd grown 3 inches since moving in with me, who was becoming a young man right before my eyes. "Dylan, having you here hasn't messed up my life," I said. "It's changed my life, yeah, but not in a bad way. You've made me better, more patient, more present, more connected to what actually matters, so thank you." He rolled his eyes, embarrassed but pleased. "Okay, don't get all mushy about it." But he was smiling, and so was I. Jennifer was released from jail in February, after serving 13 months of her 18-month sentence. She got early release for good behavior, which meant she'd be on probation for the next 3 years and still had to complete her community service and pay restitution. Dylan and I picked her up from the jail on a cold Tuesday morning. He'd barely slept the night before, excited and nervous in equal measure. "What if it's weird?" he'd asked me the night before. "What if we don't know how to be around each other anymore? Then it'll be weird for a while," I'd said. "And then it'll get less weird, you just have to give it time." When Jennifer walked out of the facility, carrying a plastic bag with her belongings, she looked smaller than I remembered. Fragile. She saw us and her whole face crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks as Dylan ran to her and threw his arms around her. "I missed you so much," she sobbed, holding him like she might never let go. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Mom," he said, crying too. "You're out now. It's okay." I stood back, giving them their moment, feeling my own tears threatening. Whatever anger I'd felt toward Jennifer had dulled over the months. It wasn't gone. I still felt betrayed when I thought about the tablet and the lies, but it had been joined by compassion and understanding and a complicated love that had survived even this. The first few weeks of Jennifer being out were an adjustment for everyone. She moved into a halfway house initially, a requirement of her probation, which meant she could only visit Dylan during approved hours. We'd have dinners together twice a week, and she'd come to some of his school events, slowly rebuilding their relationship. She got a job at a warehouse, one of the few employers willing to hire someone with a felony record. The pay was terrible and the work was hard, but she showed up every day and did what was required. She attended her probation meetings faithfully. She started her community service hours, working at a food bank on weekends. "I'm doing everything right this time," she told me during one of our dinners. "I'm following every rule, meeting every requirement. I'm not going to mess this up." "Good," I said, "because Dylan needs you, and you need to be someone he can count on." After 6 months, Jennifer was approved to leave the halfway house and get her own apartment. It was small and in a rough neighborhood, but it was hers, and it meant Dylan could move back in with his mother. The night before he was supposed to move out of my house, Dylan came into the living room where I was reading. "Aunt Sophia, can we talk?" "Of course," I said, putting down my book. He sat on the couch, looking uncomfortable. "I'm excited to move back in with Mom. I am, but I'm also going to miss being here. Is that weird?" "Not at all," I said. "This has been your home for over a year. It makes sense that you'd have mixed feelings about leaving." "Feel guilty," he admitted. "Like I'm betraying Mom by not being totally excited, but I'm also worried about her. What if she messes up again? What if I move back and then she does something stupid and I have to go through all this again?" "Those are valid concerns," I said. "Your mom made terrible choices before, and trust has to be rebuilt over time. But she's been doing everything right since she got out. She's working hard, following her probation requirements, trying to be the mother you deserve. I think she's learned from her mistakes." "Do people really change?" he asked. It was such a profound question from a 15-year-old, and it stopped me cold. Did people really change? Could Jennifer truly be different now, or was this just a temporary reformation that would crumble under pressure? I think people can change if they want to badly enough, I said carefully. Your mom hit rock bottom. She lost 13 months with you, lost her freedom, lost her reputation. Those consequences were severe enough to make her reevaluate everything. So yes, I think she's changing, but change is a process, not a switch. She'll have to keep choosing to be better every day. If she needs help and doesn't ask for it, Dylan said. That's what happened before. She was struggling, but she didn't tell anyone, and then she started stealing. Then we stay connected, I said. We check in regularly. We create an environment where she knows it's okay to ask for help before things get desperate. And Dylan, you're not responsible for managing your mother's choices. You're her son, not her parent. If she struggles, it's on her to handle it appropriately. He nodded, absorbing this. Can I still come visit you? Like regularly? You better, I said, pulling him into a hug. You're stuck with me now, kid. Moving back with your mom doesn't mean you lose me. Dylan moved back in with Jennifer the next week, and my house felt emptier than it had before he arrived. I'd gotten used to the sound of him doing homework in the next room, the smell of teenage boy permeating the bathroom, the constant presence of another person in my space. But I also recognized that this was healthy. Jennifer and Dylan needed to rebuild their relationship, to create a new normal that incorporated the lessons they'd both learned over the past year and a half. The months following Dylan's move back with Jennifer were a test for all of us. Jennifer was trying to prove she'd changed. Dylan was cautiously allowing himself to trust her again, and I was trying to find the right balance between staying involved and giving them space to rebuild their bond. We maintained our twice-weekly dinners, alternating between my house and Jennifer's apartment. I watched my sister navigate the challenges of re-entry into society, the difficulty of finding better employment with a felony record, the social stigma, the financial strain of trying to pay rent and buy groceries while also making restitution payments to the stores she'd stolen from. She was doing it all without complaining, without looking for shortcuts, without making excuses. And slowly, I started to believe that maybe she really had changed. I went to a meeting today, Jennifer told me during one of our dinners. A support group for people with criminal records trying to rebuild their lives. How was it? I asked. Hard, she admitted. Everyone there has a story about how their record prevents them from moving forward. One woman has been trying to get an apartment for months, but every landlord rejects her application when they run the background check. Another guy lost custody of his kids because of his conviction. It's like, you serve your time, but you're never really done paying for what you did. That must be frustrating, I said. It is, but it's also fair in a way. I broke the law repeatedly. There should be consequences. I just wish there was more opportunity for redemption, you know? A path forward that doesn't feel like every door is permanently closed. I saw Dylan listening to this conversation, and I could tell he was processing his mother's words, trying to reconcile the person who'd made terrible choices with the person who was now working so hard to make better ones. One evening, about 8 months after Jennifer's release, she called me in tears. What's wrong? I asked immediately, fear spiking through me. Had she violated probation? Been arrested again? Nothing's wrong, she said, still crying. Something good happened, really good. I got a promotion at work. They're moving me to a supervisory role. It comes with a raise and better hours and actual benefits. Sophia, someone saw my work and valued it enough to promote me despite my record. I didn't think that would ever happen. I felt tears spring to my own eyes. Jennifer, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you. I called you first, she said. Before I even told Dylan, because I needed to tell you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. You took care of my son when I couldn't. You showed me what it means to be family even when family disappoints you. So thank you for everything. We talked for another 30 minutes, and by the time we hung up, I felt something shift in our relationship. The betrayal and anger I'd been carrying for nearly 2 years finally started to dissolve, replaced by genuine pride in who my sister was becoming. But real transformation doesn't happen in a straight line, and there were still hard moments. Jennifer struggled with shame about her past, with anxiety about the future, with the temptation to fall back into old patterns when money got tight. She called me one night in a panic because Dylan needed new school clothes and she didn't have enough money until her next paycheck. Can you loan me $200? She asked, her voice tight. I'll pay you back as soon as I get paid. My first instinct was to say yes immediately. But then I remembered all the times before, all the ways enabling had prevented Jennifer from confronting the reality of her situation. Loan you the money, I said, But I want you to do something for me first. What? I want you to sit down and create a budget. Really look at where your money is going and where you can cut back. Because Jennifer, you're making more money now than you were before. You should have enough for basics. If you don't, we need to figure out why. There was silence on the other end. Then, you think I'm mismanaging money. I think you might need help with financial planning, I said gently. There's no shame in that. I struggled with budgeting too when I first started living on my own. But if you're going to break the cycle that led to stealing in the first place, you need to understand how to manage your resources. She agreed, reluctantly. We spent the next weekend going over her finances together, identifying areas where she was overspending, subscription services she didn't use, eating out more than she realized, impulse purchases that added up. I didn't even realize I was spending this much on coffee, she said, looking at her bank statement. $20 a week doesn't seem like much, but that's almost $1,000 a year. We created a realistic budget together, and I loaned her the money for Dylan's clothes with the agreement that she'd pay me back $50 a month until it was repaid. And she did, every month, without me having to ask. Small victories, I learned, were actually huge victories in the context of lasting change. It's been 3 years since that morning when police showed up at my door asking about a birthday present. Jennifer completed her probation last month, and while she'll always have a felony record, she's built a life she's proud of. She's been promoted twice at her job and now manages a small team. She and Dylan have a strong relationship built on honesty and trust. She's even started dating someone, a good man who knows her whole story and accepts her anyway. Dylan is 17 now, a junior in high school, talking about colleges and future plans. He's resilient and thoughtful and wise beyond his years, shaped by experiences most teenagers never face but not defined by them. And me? I'm 40, and I've learned that family is more complicated than I ever imagined. That love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up even when things are messy and painful and hard. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing, but it does mean choosing to move forward together instead of staying stuck in the past. Jennifer and I are closer now than we've been since we were kids lying in the dark in my childhood bedroom. We talk on the phone several times a week. We have our dinners together, now sometimes including Jennifer's boyfriend and often including Dylan's latest girlfriend. We've created a new kind of family, one built not on the fantasy of who we wish we were, but on the reality of who we actually are. I still think about that tablet sometimes. About how a birthday present became evidence in a criminal case, about how a thoughtful gesture was actually a lie, about how the 11 days between receiving it and losing it represented the end of one version of our relationship and the beginning of another. But I also think about the other gifts that came from that experience. The gift of Dylan's presence in my life, of becoming someone he could count on. The gift of understanding my sister on a deeper level. The gift of learning that transformation is possible if the desire for change is strong enough and the support system is present enough. Would I want to go through it all again? Absolutely not. The police at my door, the betrayal, the months of uncertainty and pain, I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But would I trade who Jennifer is now, who Dylan is now, who I am now, to go back to the way things were before? No, because we're stronger now, more honest now, more real now. That tablet cost Jennifer 13 months of freedom and changed all our lives forever. But in a strange way, it also gave us the chance to rebuild our family on a foundation of truth instead of pretense, of real support instead of surface-level connection. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us crack us open in ways that let the light in. Sometimes betrayal leads to honesty. Sometimes consequences lead to growth. And sometimes family means loving people through their worst choices and celebrating them when they choose better. I'm Sophia. I'm 40 years old. My sister is a felon. My nephew is my almost son. And our family doesn't look anything like what I thought it should look like, but it's ours. Messy and complicated and hard-won and real. And I wouldn't have it any other way.